Welcome back to yet another episode of For the Greater Walk, where I am all alone, by myself. This is a video series where you answer the questions. No, sorry. This is a video series where we answer the questions left by you, the viewers. If you have a question for us, comment down below. Put question in front of your question because we get to those questions first. The Sound Alchemist is still not here, so my mind is all mushy and I can't really think straight, but at least I have the window in the reflection of the mirror right here, so that's giving me support. Thank you. Let's start with the questions. This question comes from Timothy Armstrong. He asks, third time asking, do you think the Salamanders might start a civil war because how the average Imperial citizen is mistreated by other Chaos Space Marine chapters? No. Space Marine chapters have battled each other forever. It's not the best situation, and they try to avoid it, but it's not unheard of for Space Marine chapters to battle it out and even have feuds with each other. The most famous of which is obviously the Space Wolves versus the Dark Angels. They can, ever since Lehman Russ and the Lion got into a fight and Lehman Russ was knocked out, they have had a feud. So there have been disagreements within Space Marine chapters since the beginning of the Great Crusade. Since the beginning of the Great Crusade. So that's a normal mistreatment would always exist. So yeah, I don't think that would be if the Salamanders were to go renegade for whatever reason, I think it would have to do with one of the artifacts that they're trying to find from their lost Primarch Vulcan. Vulcan might know something pertaining to the end times, pertaining to the Alpha Legion's plan to be a double crosser for Chaos, that might paint them as Chaos or paint them as evil, an evil chapter or a chapter that has gone renegade. But at the end of the day, I think they would still remain loyal, because that's another thing too. The Salamanders treat this Imperial citizen with respect because that is what the Emperor wanted them to do, and also the Emperor wanted them to protect the Imperium of Man. So they would not. They know that a conflict with another chapter would just hurt the Imperium overall. Yeah. Good question though. Next one comes from Andrew Krostick. If Magnus' soul hadn't been shattered when breaking into the webway, could he have beaten Russ? And was Magnus physically powerful enough to overcome a Primarch natural resistance to warp? So, first of all, Russ versus Magnus in a fight, it's a toss-up. I think Russ is underestimated. His martial prowess is one of the best, but Magnus is the best Primarch Psyker. I would say that Magnus tips the scale a little bit. He would get more wins than Lehman Russ, but it really comes down to the situation that unfolds. In this situation, obviously Magnus got his back broken. I think that was him. Yes. And then, and was Magnus physically powerful enough to overcome a Primarch's natural resistance to the warp? I don't think any Primarch had a resistance to the warp. I don't think they had nulls. They were all psychic. They all had some type of psychic presence, and Magnus being the most psychically powerful and knowing sorceress rituals, I think he could have beat even Lorgar in a sorceress duel. Good question, though. This next question comes from Tinman 40,000. Do living saints feel the uncomfortable powers of blanks as psychers? We answered this in a couple Greater Wall episodes back. The answer is yes, but if it's just one blank against a living saint, I think the living saint is powerful enough to resist that one blank. If you have a whole planet of them, then that's when the problem begins. But check out that episode to get more, and you'll get to see the Sound Alchemist. This next question comes from James Cardinal. With the Primaris treatment, is that bringing the models more in line with 1 square inch normal size units that Dungeons and Dragons miniatures use? Dungeons and Dragons miniatures actually use a smaller scale. So, no. I've tried to use Space Marines in my greater, or I've tried to use Space Marines in like my D&D campaigns, and they don't fit the squares. They're way too big. And when you compare them to something that you could get like either through WizKids or through, what's that other one, the Forge, the miniature Forge or something like that, they're still significantly larger. So Primaris Marines are even more, larger. So no. Next question comes from Ty Shingleton. Will they bring Skavin into 40k? I feel like an army of rat men would be great auxiliaries for Nurgle. We've answered this as well. No. They probably won't, because the Skavin are a mixture of Nurgle and Tyranids. GW wouldn't double dip. At least I don't think they would. GW, prove us wrong, I guess. This next question comes from... Whoa. I've answered that too. It seems like a lot of these I've already answered. Okay, this one comes from SecDub. Have you read the new Siege of Terra book, Satyrine? If so, what do you think about its revelation about the Emperor? Try to have no spoilers in the question. No, I haven't. If it's anything that... Yeah, no, I haven't. So I don't want to spoil anything. Because I think I know what you're talking about, but yeah, I don't know. Great nights. Next question comes from TSwim94. Do you think Games Workshop will ever reboot some of their defunct miniature lines, like the Praetorian Guard, Squats, Zotes, etc.? The Squats, Zotes, probably not. They won't make them into armies. The Imperial Guard regiments, I think eventually they will try to stir up some excitement around Imperial Guard, and they would bring out like some type of Imperial Guard regiment. Because if you think about it, the Imperial Guard regiments, the Imperial Guard regiment models that we have today are actually Cadian Guard, and Cadia is no more. So they need to, revamp that as soon as they can, I guess. And if they see that they could get interest from the audience and stuff like that. Good question, though. This next question comes from Philippe Kuzmanowski. With the Ultima founding, doesn't the Imperium have fresh new legions? How big were their numbers? There was about 1,000 Space Marine chapters with about 1,000 Space Marines, and they were hurting. Mostly because the gene seed was deteriorating. So this Ultima founding and these Primaris Marines have bolstered their ranks. How big are they now? I don't think the 9th edition core rulebook has said it yet, but they have to be significantly bigger, just because Gilliman himself is trying to do what the Codex Astartes told them not to do, or what he wrote for the Codex Astartes not to do, and create a legion-sized force. That's kind of what the Indomitus Crusade was. But nobody's going to say anything to him because he's Gilliman and he can do whatever he wants. Next question comes from Friendly Hive Tyrant. What's the blue dragon on your right top shelf? Oh, cool. I didn't know you could see that. So that dragon is a Dungeons and Dragons mini, and I was gonna use him. That is it, right? Yeah. It's a Dungeons and Dragons mini, and he's a mini that I'm gonna be using in a campaign that I'm gonna run for the Sound Alchemist and a couple of friends, and I am painting it. Good eye. Next question comes from Friendly Hive Tyrant once again. What do you think the new Necron Mini's peak is behind the monolith in the leaked photo? Num num. Mini peaks? I'm not sure. The monolith already has been revealed. From my understanding, from our friend who plays Necrons, I think they're just better weapons, if I'm understanding what you're asking. Yeah. Next question comes from Lois Holland. What do you think about the theory that the Tyranids will ultimately end up consuming the galaxy and start the cycle again in another? Yeah, that's the most probable one. It's also the most boring one. I like to think that it is actually the old ones who sent in the Tyranids, and the Tyranids are going to clean slate And once that's gone, the old ones are going to come back and be like, all right, cool, let's start this all over again. But the Tyranids won't move on to another galaxy. They'll just be destroyed by the old ones, because the old ones have like the what is it called? The self-destruct button. But yeah. Next question comes from Zombie Monkey 7. In Dark Tides, what other factions beside Nurgle would you like to see in the game? I would really like to see mutants. So like abhumans that are just completely like bizarre, but not Nurgified, because Nurgified mutants are just zombies. So like more Resident Evil types of like the huge abomination things. So that would be kind of cool. Smelt rats would be kind of cool. Smelt rats are basically giant rats that are sentient enough to understand how to augment their bodies to use cybernetics, which is really cool. But yeah, I think those factions. It also would be cool to see like other Xenos, so maybe Dark Eldar or the Eldar trying to investigate what's down there. Whenever you throw an Eldar into the mix, the question becomes more, or the threat becomes more serious, because the Eldar are not going to risk their life unless there's something very, very dire that's happening. So that would be kind of cool. This next question comes from Panda Say 25. He has 3 questions. First question: why aren't there any Chaos Gods trying to destroy the Emperor's soul in the warp? If he is becoming a god of order, surely there must be a sign of him in the warp somewhere. Well, he's not. If he is manifesting in the warp, he might not be manifesting. He might be manifesting in the webway, which would make sense because Segra hides in the webway. So maybe he's kind of taking a note from Segra and trying to build his power until he bursts out and attacks him. And second, or the other thing is that, I mean, Chaos is always fighting each other. So not that they might, well, it could be that they're being distracted by each other, but it also could be that they are fighting some type of army of the light, and they just don't, the Imperial or the GW just hasn't written any lore for it. Next question comes for, the same question, same person. Was the Emperor Jesus in 40K universe? No, the Emperor was specifically kind of in the back, so he would not be a Jesus figure. I think Jesus was just somebody who got high on some type of drug. Next question comes, or same one. This one says, Gersh1, you go Jim? Yes, I go Jim. Are you trying to become a Space Marine, a Primarch, a Chaos God? How's that going? Bridget probably approves. Probably. We just came out of quarantine like about a month ago. I live in Illinois, so the gym is kind of annoying right now. You have to wear a mask and clean everything. And for 2 months that we were in quarantine, I would run outside, and that's when I realized that, like, oh my god, the sun and just being outside is 10 times better than being in a gym. So if anything, I'm just going to continue running outside and just being active outside. Not because I'm scared of corona, but just it's better. It just feels better for your soul. Good question. Next question comes from Big Lift. Do you think that the lore being tied to the game hurts the lore? You know, the stories will never really get moved forward as the Imperium beats the Orcs for good. In the Imperium beating the Orcs for good? Well, the Imperium will not beat the Orcs for good. The Orcs are a pest. It's almost like saying humanity is going to exterminate cockroaches or rats. That's not going to happen. But no, I think the fact that the lore is tied to the game, and GW is trying to create things so that you're interested, and you have not so that you're interested, so that you feel like you have control over the lore. That's what makes 40K so unique. It's very vague. Like, technically, there are no signs of Space Marines having relationships with anybody else, but you can change that in the lore. There is no female Space Marines are not a thing. The lore says, like, the gene seed works only with males, But that doesn't mean you can't twist the lore, because there were some lost Primarchs and you don't really know what's going on there. And I think that is the lore facilitates, the tabletop game, and how open it is and how GW wants you to homebrew is what makes or facilitates the lore being so open to everyone, and why it's so exciting, and it just keeps you like coming back and thinking about it and stuff like that. It's like it's a perfect combination of a tactical game like HeroClix mixed with Dungeons and Dragons and the storytelling elements of that. So yeah. Next question comes from Chicken Waffles. One Mind Syndicate Discord ? No, we thought about it. We were gonna do it, but that's a whole nother thing that we need to stay on top of, and it's probably just gonna be we'll probably like pay attention to it for like one day and then just completely ignore it. So no, probably not anytime soon. Next question comes from Irador 1982. If GW was to bring each Primarch back in the game, wouldn't it improve the storytelling of 40k enormously? No, it kind of ruins some of the mystery and the just that vagueness that I was talking about earlier. Because if your Primarch comes back, and let's say you were running Imperial Fists, and your Primarch comes back, then all of a sudden what's happening to your Imperial Fist has to align with what's happening that GW is saying. So no, it would not be. I guess Ultramarine players would know this. Like, if you created a homebrew chapter based off of like Ultramarines, and Guilliman came back, now you have to be like, well, the Indomitus Crusade is happening, but I wanted my homebrew chapter to do this. So then, like, it kind of goes against the fact that the Primarch is back, which is kind of weird, if that makes sense. I was really surprised, or have been really surprised, when I talk to you guys on Instagram or on Facebook, that a lot of you guys don't actually play the tabletop. You guys are just in it for the lore. So understanding that, I see why a lot of people act the way that they do in the comment section. There is a big difference between playing the game and then learning about the lore, and having the lore supplement the game, or vice versa, than just doing one. I don't think I've ever met somebody that just does the game, or like only plays the game. That'd be kind of boring. At least I think it would. This will be the last question. Isaac Langdon. Why didn't the Emperor reveal himself during the Dark Age of technology? He could have taken our Federation and made a much larger and more technologically advanced Imperium. Because he wanted humanity to do it on their own, and that's kind of like the whole thing with the Great Crusade. And if he saw in the Dark Age of technology that it was already happening, then obviously it's good. I hope that makes sense. The dog is distracting me now. My brain is all over the place. And those were the questions for today. If you guys have more questions for us, please comment down below. Thank you guys so much for asking, and I'll talk to you tomorrow. This is Gershwan with One Mind Syndicate signing out.